give it my best shot!
Welcome back everyone, hope you're having an awesome day, and today we're going to kick up some sand as we do our Acerola and Palossand sync grid guide. We're going to go through her kit, we're going to go through how to unlock her and max her out, and also a couple of sync grids and lucky skills to utilize her to her max potential. Timestamps down below if you want to skip to anywhere in particular, but without further ado, let's get into it. So firstly, in terms of unlocking her, we just go to our main story, we go to the PML arc, and all the way over here, I didn't set it up because I didn't think ahead. We've got chapter 17. We click that one. As you see, Ghostly Trio Part 2. Once we beat them in the, I think it's the PML semi-finals or something like that, we get our 5-star Acerola and Palossand ready to go. We don't have to, I don't even know, is it Sandy Ghast? Something like that. It's like the first evolution. In terms of upgrading her move level, there's a couple of ways you can do it. I would probably just wait until Pokemon Masters Day gives you a chance to just buy a copy of her in the store. You can use your 5-star tech candies if you really want to. I just think there's a lot more other tech units out there that you could use it on and get a lot more use out of them. But at the very least, if you get it a 3 out of 5, that's all you really need to utilize her sync grid. For her theme, she is a tech unit, so a little bit of extra attack and a little bit of extra health is nothing to scoff at. We've got Ghost, Alola, Elite Four, Trial Giver, and a Fancy lady. Look at that beautiful dress over there. Of course she's fancy. And for her kit, it really is just about harrying the enemy as much as possible and also being a little bit of a tank, which is nice. I like to see that. So first off, we've got Astonish, which is a single target, 1-gauge move, has a 30% chance of making the target flinch. So once you hit them with Astonish, you have a 30% chance to make them flinch, which means they won't be able to do anything or attack you, which is always nice to keep the damage down. X defense will raise your defense by 2 stat ranks, so you get a +4 defense, really good at tanking the enemy there. Sandstorm will cause a sandstorm, big surprise there. It will damage everyone on the entire field, just remember that, unless you have sand shelter. And lastly, over here, will make the opponents target the user for a short time, and will also give you gradual healing. So it's essentially like a taunt. You just go, hey, look at me, I'm the big sandcastle, and they'll start trying to attack you, and gives your main tank, if you have that, a little bit of extra time to just kind of get their health back up, or get some potions going or something like that. And for a sync move, the never-ending Royal Nightmare. The more the user's defense is raised, the greater the power of this attack, so the more that we up our defense, remember we can increase our defenses. The more that our defense is raised, the more damage we do, and because she's a tech unit, a little bit of extra damage on our sync move, just built in, which is always nice. Passive skills is Sand Fortress, not Sand Shelter, unfortunately, but Sand Fortress, which means that we basically get impervious while there's a sandstorm up, so they can't lower any of our stats while we have sandstorm going. If there's a way you can keep it going for a longer time or anything like that, definitely helpful to keep her stats up, keep her tanking, and keep her in the fight. And for her lucky skills, it does depend on how you want to use her. If you're going to use her a bit more offensively, like as an offensive tech unit, Critical Strike 2 is probably the way to go, just to get that extra damage out there. You do need to make sure that you can kind of get that going. I think you can also get Surging Sand, which can come in pretty helpful if you don't want to use her as like a tech nuke. Just want some extra damage on Astonish. You can throw in Surging Sand to get some stuff there. However, me personally, I really just like having Vigilance, just for the fact that she can taunt. She can take the heat off our main tank. She can taunt for a little bit, and mitigating those crits is going to be nice to keep her in the fight. And for her grids, it just depends on how you want to use her. I've got a Sync Nuke build, basically like a DPS kind of build, and then just like a tanky build. So again, timestamps if you want to skip to any of those in particular. So first off is going to be our Sync Nuke build, focusing on doing as much damage with our sync move as possible. Remember, the more our defense is raised, the more damage it's going to do. So because of that, we want X defense MP refresh, just so then we don't have to rely on putting another unit in to make sure we can up our defenses. If you have that anyway, you can skip this, but I like to have this to make sure she can up her defenses, get that as much damage out as possible. Soothing Sand, because she can set Sandstorm, having Soothing Sand to give ourselves some health is, again, really good, A, to keep her in the fight, and B, if she does taunt for us with over here, we can at least get some passive regeneration back on top of the gradual healing. Just really keeps her in the fight, keeps her stocked and healthy. Puff Cookie, the more that your defense is raised, the more it's going to increase your moves. That's just going to be for Astonish, which is just basically adding extra on there. We want to max out our defense anyway, so getting extra damage out with Astonish is never a bad idea. Sand Shelter, because she doesn't have it in her passives, which I think is just really silly. Why would you have a unit that has Sandstorm that doesn't have Sand Shelter? But whatever, it's in the grid, it's only 3 energy. We'll pick it up anyway, just to make sure we don't take any damage from Sandstorm. Sandstorm MP refresh, so that we can get as many Sandstorms out as possible. Remember, when Sandstorm's out, we've got Soothing Sand, which is going to give us a lot of healing as well. So getting that out as much as possible to make sure we can keep damaging the enemy and also healing ourselves is going to be nice. And lastly is going to be Focus Group 4. Will give you a 50% chance of increasing your crit rate of all your allied sync pairs whenever you use Sandstorm. Again, remember, we have MP refresh as well. So if we can get 3 of those, max out our crit, and if we have Crit Strike 2 for our sync nuke, big damage output numbers, which is always nice. That's what you want to see in those builds, you know? Next up is the new and improved Sandcastle build, focusing on basically being a tank for us, and whether it's a normal tank or just an off tank, however you want to use it, this is probably the primary build I would focus on, especially when we're running Vigilance. So we've got a lot of Sandstorm bonuses, obviously, Sandstorm MP refresh and Sand Shelter, so we can keep the Sandstorms coming out and not get hit by it. Soothing Sand to refresh our health a little bit. Remember, over here will give us that gradual healing as well. Double healing, increasing our survivability, keeping us in the fight. Astonish Aggravation 1 is just going to add another 10% chance of us getting a flinch on the enemy whenever we use Astonish. It's just good at mitigating damage coming our way, especially if they've only got that one unit left. Keep hitting them with Astonish, getting that flinch constantly. It's going to be really good to prolong the battle, you know, and get the big moves out that you need. Over here, MP Refresh 2 is really good just to make sure we can keep tanking as much as possible. We get that gradual healing, which means we get a lot of extra healing, which is nice. And then on top of that, if we need to take some heat off our allies however we can, we've got over here to make sure they target us. And lastly is going to be Toughen Up and Tighten Up 4, which is a 50% chance of raising your defense and special defense by 1 stat rank whenever you get hit by an attack. So as you get hit, you have a 50% chance of getting a +1 defense or special defense, which is good at just making you just as tanky as possible, mitigating as much damage coming your way as you can. If you want, you could opt to just take off Toughen Up 4 and pick up something else. I just like having it to max out my defense, but you're going to get a +4 anyway, so it's one of those, whichever one you kind of need. And lastly is going to be what I call the Astonishing Build, just focusing to do as much damage with Astonish as possible, which you wouldn't think you would be saying with a 1 gauge move, but it is what it is. First off, we've got obviously our Sandstorm and our Sand Shelter here as well. She can throw Sandstorm out, it's part of her kit. Getting that Sand Shelter is going to be very handy at not taking damage. That's the last thing you want to be doing whenever you throw out a move that you throw out. Again, why she doesn't have Sand Shelter on her passives, I will never understand. Tough Cookie, the more that our defense is raised, the more it's going to power up our moves. I would highly recommend getting something that can give you at least another +2 defense, so you can max that out and get as much damage out with Astonish as possible. Astonish Aggravation, we want to pick this up so that we can flinch the enemy, so we can activate our next node. Harry 5 will pair up the user's moves against targets that are flinching. If the target is flinching, when you hit them with Astonish, they're going to take another 50% extra damage, which is just big damage numbers out. And speaking of big damage numbers, let's add a little bit extra in. With Surging Sand 5, powers up the moves while in a Sandstorm. So whenever you use Astonish, if there's a Sandstorm and they're flinching, you get another 100% extra damage. Plus the extra damage with Tough Cookie. A lot of extra defense there as well. Lots of damage output. As you can see, not very tanky, not really focusing on that. Just big damage with Astonish. That's all we really need. Moving on to Honourable Mentions, Astonish Move Gauge Refresh. I really don't think putting a Move Gauge Refresh for a 1-bar move is super useful. If you want to pick it up, go for it, but there's so many other better nodes that you can pick that you don't really need this. Sandstorm, Flagbearer 9, it will raise the attack of all allied sync pairs by 1 whenever you use Sandstorm. The only problem is it's only by 1 stat rank for 10 energy. It's really not worth it. If you want to get technical, +3 spread out, I suppose, but it's not really worth it for 10 energy in my opinion. Sandstorm Move Gauge Refreshes, I don't really care about these. It's a 2 gauge move. It's not super hard to get out. You just kind of throw it out and then you forget about it. If you really want to go a Move Gauge Refresh, I wouldn't really want to spend 5 energy on it. If it was like 3 energy, you can make an argument maybe, but for the most part, as I said before, even with like the Astonish Move Gauge Refresh, there are way more better abilities you can be picking on this grid. And lastly, Backfire 1 will lower the attack and special attack of all opposing sync pairs by 1 just before you faint. So basically it'll activate, it'll lower their stats, and then you'll have the fainting animation. The only problem with this is you are losing at that point. You lose a unit for this to activate, and it only lowers it by 1 stat. If it was 2 or 3, I could definitely see maybe an idea there for like a tank build, but all in all, I don't really like Backfire 1. I think it's pretty useless. And that's it for our Acerola and Palossand sync grid guide. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know down below if I gave you some sync grid ideas, and also let me know if there are any ideas that I missed, any other grid ideas. Again, I usually use her as my tank anyway, with the over here, the extra healing, a lot of Sandstorm as well. Whenever I need someone to kind of tank for me, and it's a ghost type or an Alola, I throw in Acerola Palossand, and she can get the job done. And worst case, if you 6-star her, she does have a couple of nodes in there to increase the damage out as well. But yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video.